Hi folks, Dave Schmidt here. Hey, it's October 21st, and this is the weekly newsletter and video in conjunction with the October 22nd newsletter and radio program. Well, I have a special announcement for tomorrow's radio program. The ambassador of the Red Dragon family has agreed to come on my radio program for an open Q&A, which means that you will be able to call in and ask any and all questions. Also, there is a potential that he will have a special guest along with him. I can't announce at that time who this is, but let me just say that if he is able to come along, it will be a big surprise to everybody. A lot of you have asked, who is this Red Dragon family, and what is their responsibility, and how do they influence global finances? I've known about them for about 3 years. I've talked about them for over a year on my weekly radio program and newsletters. And for over the last 3 months, I have been communicating with the ambassador of the Red Dragon family 2 to 3 times per week, sometimes even more. Sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's as many as 3.5 hours. And through that process, I have come to understand a lot of things that we understand about global finances are not the way that they seem. Let me explain that. And this is what the this is what the ambassador had told me about who the Red Dragon family is. For thousands of years, they have been collecting the vast majority of all the gold that is on this planet. They don't see themselves as the owners of this gold because they understand that this gold belongs to humanity, because it had come from humanity, not from just them. So they don't see themselves as the sole possessors. But they do see themselves in a term that is best to be used, that is the trustees of this gold. And its assets is to be released to the human race at the appropriate time. This is something that has been going on for thousands of years. And we have now moved into when that time is ready. This is a family that is not just Chinese. It's very broad-based. It's multi-ethnic. It comes from royal bloodlines from Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and within China. They get mixed up as being Chinese because their headquarters are in China, but they are not all Chinese. So it's important to understand that. They are a reflection of the human race. And they have all races involved in their family. There's over 180 different bloodlines involved in this family. They're very large. There are multiple layers, very broad-based, and sometimes there are confusions about who they really are. There are different colors of the dragon families. There's red, there's a white dragon family, there's a green dragon family, there's a blue dragon family, there's a gold dragon family, and there's a black dragon family. But the red dragon family are the ones who are responsible for global finances. Now, this is information that you don't hear about in the public, and you've never heard about it in the public. It's always been behind the scenes. This is a family that has lived in obscurity for basically a couple thousand years. But it's very similar to about most of what we understand about global finances is not what is real. The illustration. The Federal Reserve is not a federal government agency. It's a private corporation ruled predominantly by 4 families. They control directly, indirectly, all the central banks all around the world, and they control the world's money supply. They never tell you how they truly operate, so it's always behind the scenes. They don't tell you how they manipulate the world's money supply, so it's always behind the scenes. So what really goes on about most of the global finances is about what goes on behind the scenes. So tomorrow, when the ambassador, and that is his role, he is the ambassador, he is the public spokesperson for the Red Dragon family. When he comes onto my radio program, I'm going to start with a couple preliminary questions that almost all of us would like to know to give some background. The first thing is, who is this family? And you will hear from him, the ambassador, say that they own and control 95% of all the gold on this planet, i.e. they therefore own and control 95% of all the money on this planet. By controlling it, it's not a direct control. It's basically a fiduciary responsibility, and they release and allow various sources throughout the planet to operate in a free will capacity. They don't directly interfere with how different sources use these finances, whether it would be in good manner or what would some of us could call bad or even evil capacity. They allow free will choices, but at the right appropriate time, they will step in and take control. And this is one of those times that is happening. So the ambassador will explain about who is this Red Dragon family, how they operate, what is happening, and why they are beginning to become public, to step out into the public arena and the appropriate time for this. He'll talk about the comments that I made last week that had come from him, how the family is beginning to take control of the Federal Reserve and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, what that means. Now, if I can use an illustration, it doesn't mean that they have taken control directly, but it does mean that they are the legal owners of the Federal Reserve. How? Because, see, when the Federal Reserve started over 100 years ago, they had to borrow money from the family to get their start. So therefore, there was a creditor-debtor relationship. Very similar to how what we have if we borrow money from a bank for the home that we own. We're the owners, but legally, the bank is the owners. And the bank doesn't really care about what you do with your home. They don't care about what color you paint your home, what type of furniture you put in it, who lives in it, etc. All they want you to do is to pay their bill. What was very similar with the family to the Federal Reserve. It was a creditor-debtor relationship. They didn't manipulate the Federal Reserve of what they could do or what they could not do with these funds. But it has come time that the Federal Reserve, that their indebtedness have become so large that they cannot pay back their debt. And the family, in essence, have stepped in a legal manner and has basically foreclosed upon the Federal Reserve. In essence, they're saying, you can't pay your debt. It's time for us to step in and take control. Now, you're not going to see anything dramatic right away. This control measure will take place in small steps over a period of time. Why? Because it's important that this doesn't get released to the total public. Here's an illustration. We know that the cabal who controls the Federal Reserve controls the mainstream media. If this was an announcement that the Red Dragon family, who are referred to as the Chinese, had come in and taken control, the mainstream media could have mayhem with this. They could say something like this: the Chinese have come in and taken over the Federal Reserve, and because the Federal Reserve supplies the money supply to all the banks in the United States, and because that basically has a huge economic impact on the United States, the Chinese in essence have taken over all of the economic issues within the United States, and they have taken control of the United States. Now, can you imagine if something like that came out in the mainstream media? The public would go berserk. They would have panic. They would have fear. There would be mayhem, possible anarchy and rioting, and demanding that we take control because we can't let China take over the United States. That's why this stuff goes on behind the scenes, and it goes on very quietly. Now, also, there had been an announcement that there was a world court that the Federal Reserve had gone before asking, and the Fed was asking to be able to file bankruptcy. This world court is a behind-the-scenes court that deals with the affairs of sovereigns, i.e. countries, in conjunction with their relationship with the family. Because if you understand, and this is behind-the-scenes information, that all the countries in the world operate as corporations financially, then there would be a legal process of how this would go through in a filing of a bankruptcy. The Federal Reserve, a private company, a private corporation, has been foreclosed upon. They have gone before this court and they have said, we wish to file bankruptcy. And guess what? The world court stepped in and said, no, you can't. Because see, if the Federal Reserve as a corporation was able to file bankruptcy, it means all their indebtedness would be passed on to us, the citizens of the United States. That would create a global currency collapse, not only of the US dollar, but a collapse of currencies and economics all around the world, and it would put us into a situation that was far more severe than the Great Depression that started in 1929. The World Court says we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let you step in, basically devastate the human race, put the vast majority of the people on this planet into a slavery situation, and then you get away scot-free, keeping your power and keeping your control. Not this time, cabal. Not this time, Federal Reserve. Not this time, International Monetary Fund, and etc. You have to be responsible for the indebtedness that you created and what you've done to yourself. These are the shifts and changes that are taking place that I talked about last week. Now, these shifts and changes, as I mentioned, will not happen overnight. You're not going to see this stuff appearing in the mainstream media news. It will be released on a slow, step-by-step basis. But what's most important is tomorrow night, you can call in and you can ask questions. As I said, we'll start out explaining the situation, and then we'll open it up to a Q&A. And it'll be a full, complete 2-hour program. Now, let me make first a couple administrative announcements. Some of you have said you've had problem getting in touch with my radio program, especially downloading the MP3 file. Here's how it was explained to me. It's because you're probably using Google Chrome as your browser. This comes through an RSS feed. Google Chrome doesn't use standard RSS feeds. You would have to get an off-market application to be able to pick up this MP3 file through Google Chrome. Your other option is to listen through either Internet Explorer or Firefox as your browser on your computer. If you don't want to do that, then you'll have to get, basically, as I said, an off-market RSS feed application. That's the reason why some of you have not been able to get the program, but for thousands of others it's been working fine. Now, some of you also have commented on my YouTube page that says, hey, where do I get the radio program? Well, go to my website. All the links are on the website. This video is not my only format of communicating and information. My primary format is everything comes through my website, thesedonaconnection.com. It's there you go. You find the links to the radio programs. You find the links to my newsletter, because the newsletter will always carry more. This video is always an attachment, an addendum to my weekly newsletter. So if you're only watching the video on YouTube, you're not getting the full story that's there. You may want to sign up. You may want to sign up on my newsletter. All you got to do is go to my website, and in the right-hand column, there is a link to which is an automatic subscription to the newsletter. If you don't like the newsletter, unsubscribe anytime. It's always your choice. But tomorrow's radio program, it'll be a special one. Would love to have you there, okay? The program starts live at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, but you can always listen to it anytime archived. Okay, folks, thanks a lot. See you tomorrow.